All right, well, we are going to go ahead and start. Welcome everybody again to this webinar on cybersecurity. We're thrilled to have everybody join us. But just as a way of introduction, my name is Dan Speakman. I'm with LeBaron and Carroll Insurance, and we are thrilled today to have Brian Spitler with us. He's the Chief Information Officer and VP of Technology at Imagine Technology Group. And we have loved our association with ITG over the last number of years, and we're just ecstatic to have Brian's many, many years of expertise here to let you benefit from today. So with that, Brian, I will turn the time over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Thank you for giving me your time today. My name is Brian Spitler. I'm the CIO for Imagine Technology Group. I've been in the security IT space for over 30 years, more years than I care to think about. So I've seen some things, and I'm always surprised by security and in the security space and in the IT space. Hackers are inventive. They're really, really, really smart people, and I always often think that if they put their talents to a profitable use beyond cybersecurity, they could probably solve a lot of the world's problems. But today we're here to talk about how to keep them from interrupting your life. So we're going to go on and talk a little bit about cybersecurity. As mentioned, please, if you have questions, put them in the chat. The more interactive, the better. And here we go. All right. So why is cybersecurity so important? Well, you all have piles of data that you probably don't even think about every day. And how do you keep others from intercepting that data, using that data for nefarious purposes? How do you keep yourself protected? Really, the goal of cybersecurity is to prevent your data from leaking out into the world, protecting your clients' data, protecting your financial data. Financial loss is the number one issue with cybercrime, and it's also the number one reason why criminals are so interested in your data. There's always a financial gain. If there wasn't, they wouldn't do it. Your business is important. Think about what would happen if you were down or offline, your systems were down, you couldn't access them for a week. How about a month, 6 months? You'd likely be out of business. And that is absolutely what cybersecurity attempts to prevent. It's so, so, so critical that you protect your information, not only for your business continuity, but for your reputation. If you think about some of the things you've seen in the industry recently, and we'll get more in depth on some of those, there's a lot of issues. If you think back to the main hack that Target suffered, what is it, 2 years ago now? That took Target, a national retail chain, down to their knees. And it changed their reputation. It changed their entire business model. So that's the stuff that cybersecurity protection tries to prevent. And personal privacy. You are responsible. You are holding a lot of your clients' data. You do not want to have to go through the work of notifying them that you had a breach and here's what we're going to do to resolve it. I'm sure we've all gotten those letters in the mail. Such and such was breached. Here's your options. You can either do credit monitoring, or you can join the class action suit. Nobody wants to be in that situation. So cybersecurity, absolutely super important. Of all the things I do all day long in technology, cybersecurity probably takes up 75% of my time. What is the cost of cybersecurity? Well, it varies depending on your organization. Security can be helpful and it can also be harmful. And what I mean by that is cybersecurity needs to be a balancing act. You can go so far into the security realm that you've actually locked your employees out of doing their jobs every day. That wouldn't help you at all. However, the cost of not spending on cybersecurity could be catastrophic. You store a large amount of information, data, personal, financial data. We have to figure out a way to safeguard it. And there's a million ways to do that, depending on your business. And we're going to just talk about a few of those today.
Brian, quick question for you.
Absolutely.
One of the many comments that we get on the insurance side is, as we're talking to our clients about whether they should have some type of cyber policy, or one of the concerns is that they say, hey, I don't do business online. I have a small website presence. I largely have a trade business. Um, so I'm not at risk, is often the comment. And it's a big education hurdle for us to help them see, well, they're a lot more online than they think they are. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So you may not feel like you're online. Your services may not be quote unquote in the cloud. Do you have internet access at your office? It's a yes or no question. And I'm guessing that probably 99.99% of people have internet access at their office. You are online. Every one of your laptops, your endpoints, your servers is connected online. Even your printers, your copiers, everything. As I mentioned earlier, the Target hack. Let's just say Target said we're not online. The way those hackers got in was through a thermostat. Yes, a thermostat. No one had changed the administration default password on the thermostat. And by using that and connecting to that thermostat, because the entire operation was on the internet, they were able to get through to all the network, to credit card data, to customer data. You may not think you're online, but I assure you, you are online. Everyone has one of these. You're online. We all use our phones to, well, I shouldn't say all. Most people use their phones to manage their business. That's always online. It's not just about having your data in the cloud. It's about being connected to it. And I think we can all agree that we probably can't live without it for the most part, at least not nowadays. So you've all seen movies. The original movie that came out about cybercrime was War Games. It came out in the 80s. I don't know how many of you remember it, but it was essentially a kid with a modem that was connecting to a network and hacking his way through a computer at oh NORAD, and he almost launched a nuclear holocaust. That's an extreme version, but it's not too far off from the truth. Hackers are no longer sitting in the dark and typing away and hacking their way through or forcing their way brute force through a network. It's groups of people, hundreds of them, band together to hack an individual site, band together to create disruption in a particular industry, band together to do whatever, change the outcome of elections, take down governments in other countries. They are together and they are well organized. So it has become what we like to think of as a contact sport. We are actively managing and battling hacking attempts every day. A great example, at another company I was at, we decided to turn up a new service. We, through our network, we immediately opened up a new IP address, which is the base address of every computer. Within seconds of opening it up, we were watching China try to access it. They're constant scanning for openings, port openings, IP address openings, any way to get into a network. I Most of hacks don't cause any damage. They don't get anywhere. They only hack, they're only able to access somebody's phone, or they're only able to access a local laptop. It's that one in a million chance that you're the one that lets them into the network, and you compromise your customers' data, your financial future. That is the area we're trying to manage. You have massive teams of hackers that have a single goal. They will take over other computers in other areas that they don't even own to help them achieve that goal. So hackers are no longer just this little, you know, kids sitting in the corner that haven't showered in 2 days with Cheetos all over their desk. They are absolutely well organized, well funded, and after everything that they can get out of your computer systems. So don't think the hackers are just, sitting in the corner anymore. That's just not the case. Who needs cybersecurity? So ITG, Imagine Technology Group, is a full managed IT provider. We get this question every day. Do I actually need cybersecurity? The answer is yes. You may not think your data is online, but there's 175 zettabytes of data online as of the end of 2024, it's estimated. It's very hard to tell because obviously the data is spread out everywhere. That presents untold opportunities for hackers. You may have a spreadsheet with old customer information on it, maybe a credit card number, maybe a social security number. It only takes one breach for financial damage to occur, for reputation damage to occur and ultimately business damage. Hackers are smart. They are so smart. I wish that they would turn those talents to something that would be beneficial to the world in general, but they don't. They're after the money because most hacks are financially motivated. 60% of your data is actually online, whether you think it's there or not. You do all store stuff locally on my computer. I know everyone does it. But how many of you have OneDrive or Dropbox or Google Drive? I bet most of you have some offline storage that allows you to access those files from anywhere. That's online data. Even pictures can be considered hackable online data. So my camera on my phone, I take a picture, it gets uploaded to Google. Somebody breaks in and steals that, they now have the date and time, where I was, who my family is, more than likely. And from that, they can use image recognition and start figuring out everything there is about me. That could lead to a social engineering hack where they contact me. They know a lot about my family. They know a lot about where I was, what I've done, and to try to convince me to give up credit card or information that I wouldn't normally give up. You all get those text messages from banks. Hey, this is such and such bank reaching out with security code. We will never ask you for this security code. I've had people call me and say, hey, this is such and such from your bank. We just like to verify your social security number. Can you tell it to us? Hackers are, I cannot stress how smart these guys are. I cannot stress how much they will steal your data and use it for financial gain, and they do not care what happens to you. So, who needs cybersecurity? Every single person that runs a business, whether it's one person or 1,000 people, you have to address your cybersecurity needs. It's super, super, super critical. So this is the part everybody always wants to know. Actually, I just got to see a question here. Do you recommend cloud data storage or local data storage for businesses? If your business has a circuit into your connection to the internet into your office, it simply doesn't matter. The choice between cloud and local should be more one of business continuity without security in mind. So you have a local storage server in your office and it crashes and you haven't backed it up or you haven't replicated it. The building catches on fire. Somebody manages to break in and destroys the building. I always recommend cloud servers and cloud storage simply for the level of data security it gives you. Does it change your cybersecurity structure? Yes. It just adds another element to it that you need to be aware of. So I always like cloud storage. I like to be able to access my data anywhere. I like to make sure that my data is always backed up and available just in case of a disaster. So I always recommend cloud storage. Um, let's talk about types of threats. So this is the part that everybody always gets interested in because it's the cool part. There's a lots of ways people can break into your data, more than you care to think about. Some of the types of threats, malware. Those are the typical, you probably all loaded antivirus software on your computer. That's where cybersecurity really started. There was viruses that would go around and they would corrupt your data and they would send your data offline to other places. That's called malware. Unfortunately, today's malware comes in so many forms. It could be you plug your phone in, you're in an airport, you're traveling, you see those charging stations. You go over and you plug your phone in. Well, depending on who was there before you, they could have left a virus or malware on that charging station. The minute you plug it in, what happens? Your phone thinks you're connecting to a data source and it downloads the data. Now your phone's corrupted. Now you take your phone and you start doing work emails. Now it's got access to your work email. Cyber threats are everywhere. Malware is everywhere. Someone hands you a USB drive, these little tiny USB drives. Everyone uses them. They transport pictures over to Walgreens to get them printed. Depending on where you get these from, a lot of times you can pick these up at trade shows. Never, ever, ever just stick them straight into a computer that's on your network. You don't know what's on it or where it's been. The viruses could be hidden on it. Don't fall for it. The biggest source of hacking, about 60% of cyber attacks, come from internal. Now, I'm not suggesting that your employees are not trustworthy. I'm not suggesting that you need to start investigating every single one of them. What I'm saying is phishing attempts, hacks that are coming through your email, invoices attached to an email that you've never seen before, and you just click it open and it launches something on your computer, asking you to click a link and fill in your credit card information to pay this bill, asking you to change, oh, this is such and such, somebody you do business with, ABC company. Hey, we've changed our bank and we want to make sure that you have our updated ACH information. I've seen that more times than I care to think about. People go in the accounting department, they go in, they change the ACH information, and they send a $200,000 payment to the wrong company, never to be seen again. Phishing attempts are the one area of cybersecurity that we cannot fully control because they're behavior based. Phishing attempts are only reduced through training, 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 and more training. You probably, if you're working for a company of any size, you've probably gotten cybersecurity training modules that you have to watch. It's a movie. It tells you what to look for, what not to look for. They're great, and but people have to listen and understand them. Understanding is where we come into problems. It's innocent enough to click on a link and hope that it's what you think it is, but it could lead to very big disaster. So training is one area that we at ITG really push. We do weekly trainings to all of our clients. We push phishing attempts. So occasionally you'll get an email to see if you'll click on it. It's a white hack attempt. In other words, it's a safe hacking attempt because we're doing it. It's not to catch people, it's just to educate them continually so they understand the ever evolving threat status out there.
Brian, quick question. We've
Absolutely.
had people ask us to explain the difference between phishing and social engineering. Can you discuss that?
Yeah, so phishing is what we just talked about. It's basically someone sending you information, trying to get other information out of you. Um, Phishing attempts can happen over social media as well, Facebook, Instagram. I've seen them 100 times, but most social engineering attempts don't really have anything to do with social media. It's more like you get a phone call. Hey, I'm standing at the front lobby and I really need some help. Can you let me into the building? You let somebody into the building, and on the way by, they plug a USB drive in. They steal a badge from somebody. Social engineering is essentially working with your employees to get what the hacker wants. It all involves people. Now, I will tell you that in a lot of our trainings and in our phishing trainings, we do touch on the social engineering part of it. Um, but they come in so many forms, it's hard to tell. I don't know if you've ever received the text message, hey, we're trying to deliver your UPS package and we have a wrong address. Could you click here and fill in the right address? That's a good example of a start of a social engineering attack. You have to be so vigilant all the time, whether it's in a written form sent to you via email or it's somebody calling you or a text message. It all relates to one thing. They want your data. Hope that answers your question. The next kind of attack is called denial of service. You've heard people talk about DDoS attacks. Recently, there was on X, there was a discussion going on. And unfortunately, only 1 million people got to watch it because a group attacked X's servers with a denial of service attack. Well, what is a denial of service? Essentially, they flood the routers and the network management with so much data that they can't keep up and that it just stops processing. Computers are finite. They have a specific CPU and a specific memory that they can do X number of things with. If you overload those, we all know what happens when you have 20 tabs open to the top of your browser. Everything slows way down. So a denial of service attack is designed to do exactly that. Deny service to everybody outside of your own network. They can also be costly. I used to work in the VoIP industry, the telecom industry, and we had a large carrier who was down for 5 days because somebody just kept hacking them, just kept flooding their servers with data, and they couldn't process it all. Even if it's garbage data, it takes a while for the computer to look at it. Go, okay, this is garbage, throw it out. Next, garbage, throw it out. So denial of service attacks is generally to prevent data from being released or an event occurring. You'll hear the media talk about that all the time. Insider threats. These are the ones that are the most difficult to detect. They are basically someone approaching a disgruntled employee on the street and offering them X number of dollars to plug this USB drive in when they get to the office, or to plug this device into a network. Insider threats are incredibly hard to discover until it's too late. It's just, you need to know your employees, you need to trust them, and you need to address issues as they come up. Insider threats are, again, hard to detect, but they can also be the most damaging because they go unnoticed for the longest. Password attacks, I think we all know what those are. You've seen, I'm going to refer back to that old movie War Games. The way he got in was just continually trying random passwords over and over and over and over. Recently, ITG had what's called a penetration test. It's essentially hiring a security company to try to hack into your business, or how to hack once they're inside the business. One of the things they do is they take your Active Directory, which is where most people store all their network data, all their user information, and they just keep trying random passwords over and over and over until they're locked out. Then they go into the next account. So password attacks, pretty brute force, pretty brutal, and again, hard to detect until they're too late because the person's already in. Now they have a valid username and password. So those are the ways you prevent those, and the ways you watch for those is to watch the log data. If you see someone logging in or trying to log in over and over and over and getting denied, then you block that person. Social engineering, we just went over. It's basically working to make you think that you're helping somebody or doing the right thing by your company. Social engineering comes in so many forms. A new one is IoT attacks. Every device on the planet is now connected to the internet. It's crazy the amount of data it produces every minute. Target was a good example of an IoT attack. They had, again, broken through a thermostat. That's an IoT attack. Normally, thermostats are not online. This one was. Here we go. And if those nightmares weren't enough to keep you awake at night, we now have AI powered attacks. So everyone's heard the buzzword AI, artificial intelligence. Um, Essentially, what it is it's an application that's smart enough to continually poke at your network to try to find a way in without tripping any alarms. It's more of behavior attacks. It more simulates looking like your employees are having issues getting into your network. Maybe you think that this person traveled out of the state, is now in another state and trying to hack in through a VPN. They're very crafty. On the converse side, we now have AI powered behavioral security programs. They're not widely known, they're not widely used, and they're incredibly cost prohibitive, but they are coming because you have to find a counter to all the AI attackers. So you need AI defenders. So that's a new area of security and cybersecurity that is just now emerging, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about it in the coming years. This right here, this 2,200 security breaches on average per day, that's one every 39 seconds. That's how pervasive this is. Even if you don't hear about it, generally the media only tells you the big hacks or the big disasters, like the CrowdStrike outage we had recently. It's all the ones you don't hear about. Um, I don't know if you were all aware, but there was a massive breach of United Health back in February. Basically, they couldn't write prescriptions, they couldn't process claims, they couldn't do anything. I did not actually hear about this until I got a security bulletin. The media never picked it up. So if you think about how many times you hear about hacks on the media, think about all the times you don't. Cybersecurity is a massive field growing, billions and billions of dollars poured into threat detection, threat hunting, threat mitigation every single month. And it's not going to go away.
Brian, do you have any idea what type of businesses, as far as size wise, are at various levels of risk? For example, obviously big public targets we hear about, as you've mentioned, but from other channels in our industry, we've often heard that the small, medium-sized business are often at greater risk because they have far less security. Do you have any
That
info?
is absolutely true. They don't Cybersecurity costs generally anywhere from 5 to 30% of your IT budget. It's not a small amount. Average dollars spent on cybersecurity is $200 per user per month in some large organizations. Think about that. You have 10 users, you're a small business, and you're spending $200 per user per month. That's a massive hit to your budget. Here's the thing with security, you want to be the least shiny target. So you're right, publishing, what I want to say, press releases, large financial information going out to the public. Hey, we got this, we closed this large deal with XYZ. Those things will make you a target, but you also are generally a larger company that has more dollars to pour into cybersecurity and may actually have live cybersecurity threat hunters in your office. Smaller businesses don't have the bandwidth or the dollars to do that kind of management. That's where an outsourced MSP or outsourced cybersecurity or a network or security operations center comes into play. You can actually rent those people, for lack of a better term, to help protect your business. And that's where, actually, that's what ITG's MSP division does. We're essentially your IT company. We are fractional. I'm the CIO. I become your CIO. We will take care of some of that for you. Not that I'm doing a shameless plug for ITG, but that's what an MSP does. You don't have to spend the dollars and the massive amounts. So back to what your question was, you want to be the least shiny object. You want to be not worth hacking. You have to put your press releases and some of your desires aside and realize I don't want anyone to know I even exist except my customers. That's the best way to keep your business out of the target, out of the crosshairs, out of the limelight. Now, is it always possible? Of course not. But hopefully you have a great security team behind you that can make sure and watch your back. And that's really what it's all about. So, what can you do? Small business, medium business, large business. There's some basics that you can cover that will at least cover you, and they're all the same for everybody. The scale is the only thing that changed. Everyone, if you have an internet connection, it should immediately be plugged into a firewall. Well, y'all say, okay, well, what's a firewall other than a cool word? It essentially watches the traffic going in and out of your network, and you can set up rules to block what you want and don't want. If you get an outbound request to a website and it's a return, then that's valid. If you just get a website randomly trying to push their way into your network, that's not valid. You get a random request into your network, that's not valid. Most businesses request through a firewall, start internally, go externally, and come back internally. Rarely do you see one start externally and just come in. It doesn't make any sense. So firewalls, it's a low cost, effective way to manage that pipeline out to the rest of the world. Endpoint protection. We all know what just happened to CrowdStrike a few weeks ago. CrowdStrike is an endpoint protection application that was updated not very well. It took down 1 billion computers worldwide. So those billion computers were running a security application called CrowdStrike, and it took them offline. They had to be manually repaired. There are more than just CrowdStrike. It just happens to be the most public one that just happened. Internally, for ITG and for our customers, we use a product called SentinelOne. It's a competitor to CrowdStrike. It does very much the same thing. What it is, it's a little, they call it a sentinel. It sits on your computer and it watches all the data coming in and out. It watches everything the user does. It scans the files to make sure that there's nothing malicious attached to them. If it detects something, there's many levels of what it can do about it. It can quarantine the file, it can delete the file, it can clean the file. At the most extreme, it will shut the computer down. It will block all network access, all internal and external access, and block it. It will essentially isolate it. The reason it does that, it's an attempt to not spread the virus around. So endpoint protection, absolutely critical, low cost way to achieve some level of cybersecurity. And if you go to the little bit higher levels, you can actually hire a network operations or security operations center to monitor all the logs for your endpoint protection. That will also give you some idea if something's happening. A little bit bigger networks, we recommend intrusion prevention and intrusion detection. So you talked about that firewall that sits there. Right after the firewall, you would put an additional box called an intrusion prevention or intrusion detection system. And it also inspects every single piece of data that comes in. It's quite a remarkable device. And it decides, hey, this doesn't look right, or this is correct, or this is valid data, or based on the history of what we know, we've run it for a while, we've gathered what the normal is, it will decide yes or no on data. They're a little more expensive. You're starting to get up in some of the bigger dollars, but depending on the size of your network, it might be worth it. Something you would have to decide during a cybersecurity review.
Brian, question
Data
on,
increase.
on that.
Yep.
You
Yep.
mentioned like a medium-sized network. Is there any type of quantifiable level that you could give that would say, hey, at this size of network or with these number of users or devices, you may want to start thinking about this?
So it's really your call. My recommendation is when you get to a level where you have 50 or more users, you might want to consider some intrusion protection. Now, having said that, I've seen two user companies turn it on, but they were also managing credit card processing data. So it's more than just the user count, it's what we're trying to protect. Intrusion prevention, if you're protecting billions of dollars worth of financial assets, a few $1,000s for an intrusion prevention system, it's worth it. We would do a security overview. I would recommend everybody get a security engineer, do a security overview to look at what you're doing today and give you recommendations. 9 times out of 10, those are free. And it will help you understand maybe where you have some vulnerabilities that you hadn't thought of. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to say yes. Okay. Next levels up, we can start encrypting data. Like everybody's laptop, let's say you lose it in the airport. If somebody opened it up, would they be able to get to your data? Well, if it's not encrypted, the answer is yes. So data encryption is super, super important. There's lots of ways to do it. It's not intrusive. What that will help you prevent is ransomware. If somebody comes in, the way ransomware works is somebody comes in, they install a virus, and it essentially encrypts all the data on your network. And the only way to unencrypt it is to send X number of dollars in Bitcoin to the hacker, and he sends you the key, the password release. Well, if the data is already encrypted and backed up, who cares? Wipe the machine, reload it, go on with your lives. It's not quite that simple, but that's the basic of it. So data encryption, really low cost way to do it to protect yourself, absolutely worth it. MFA, everyone's gotten those annoying things where, hey, we're going to send you a text to your phone and you've got to put the code in to log into this website. Hey, I need you to load Authenticator on your phone and scan this QR code so we can give you an MFA password. We use something called WatchGuard MFA. Every time I log into my computer, I put the password in, and the first thing that happens is my phone pops up and says, ding, are you trying to log into this computer? I hit approve on my phone, my computer logs in. So that is a little different level of security, absolutely valid, super low cost, and I recommend it for everybody. So, what is a SIM? It's basically a way to collect all the logs and all the data from everything that's going on in your network, your firewalls, your intrusion prevention, your sentinels on your computer, and analyze it. Generally, SIMs are used by a security operations center for threat hunting. And what I mean by threat hunting is it's a way for them to look at patterns of behavior and pick out the ones that don't match. Because you could have a hacker in your system poking around very quietly, not doing anything, but it doesn't match the same pattern that the users have taken over the last 6 months. That would cause a flag. That would pop something up on the SOX side, and they would start hunting to see what's going on. Where's the threat? So a SIM is really important. If you choose an MSP or you have an IT department, make sure they're using a SIM, whether it's on site or outsourced. It's just a great way it's also a great way to backtrack if you do get hacked to figure out what happened and where the hacker came from. Some cybersecurity policies even require you to have a SIM so they can investigate if a hack occurs. And I'm not the cybersecurity policy expert. That would be somebody else. That would be our partners over at LeBaron and Carroll. So get with them on those questions. Um, DLP, data loss prevention. Another great thing you got to think about. What if you're sitting in your office and the hotel emails you and says, "Hey, I need to book your reservations. Can you email me your credit card?" Well, the second you do that, and the second that email leaves your network, now it's out there. So data loss prevention will monitor for things like that and prevent it from being sent. It'll block it out. It'll ask you to call. It'll send you a warning. So data loss prevention is about protecting your data internally from accidents or unintended consequences, if you will. Um, Data loss prevention, again, real super cheap to do, definitely worth it. There's two things that should happen on everybody's laptop all the time. Number one, you should always be changing your password every 30 days, and you should make a strong enough password. I know they're a pain, but it's the current way technology works. I have some clients that have replaced their password with fingerprint sensors. If this is something you want, it generally hooks up to the side of your PC. You scan your finger on it, you're good to go. That replaces your password. Passwords, strong password policies, changing passwords, and not duplicating them across systems is critical. However, we all know that we're going to end up with a password list that we have to remember that's quite long. Grab a password manager. LastPass is a good example, but there's lots of them out there. They are highly encrypted vaults that will store your passwords. There's just one more step to make sure you have a different password for every system and some way that you don't forget it. So those are pretty cool. But the one I've skipped on this slide was regular software updates. I cannot stress the importance enough of making sure your applications and your OS, your operating system, Windows, Mac OS, Linux, whatever you're using, is the most up to date possible. You cannot imagine the number of issues that OS manufacturers and application manufacturers receive every day that could be potential security breaches. They create patches in order to plug those holes. However, they're only good if you actually install them. So here at ITG, we do a process called Scan Tuesdays, where we scan every PC that we're responsible for managing every Tuesday. And from that, we create a list of what needs to be patched. We review that patch list on Wednesday, and on Thursday morning, as soon as those PCs come online or those endpoints come online, we patch them with the latest software. So, and I'm sure LeBaron and Carroll probably doesn't even know what's going on because it's silent. It goes on in the background. It's just part of what we do every week to make sure that our clients are protected. It's super critical. If you do not have a regular software patch policy in place, you need to get one. It's absolutely, absolutely critical. All right. So let's say you've done all this and you get hacked. Now, what do you do? Well, after the initial panic subsides, I could tell you not to panic, but we all know that's not going to happen. So immediately, if you know that a PC's been hacked, disconnect it, remove it from the network. If it's multiple, go and unplug your routers, go unplug your switches, go take them out of the, pull them out of the walls. The more you can isolate, the less damage will be caused. Because you got to figure this PC, once it's infected, is now trying to infect its neighbors. The best thing you can do, unplug it, just remove it and leave it. You need to obviously notify your relevant parties. We got to figure out what the damage is. What is this thing doing? Has it encrypted the data? Has it locked you out of your PC? What's it doing? Once you figure out what, you can start the recovery process, whether that's wiping the PC and completely reloading it, whether that's trashing the hard drive and putting a brand new one in. You can recover from it. It's not irrecoverable. It just depends on what you're willing to do to get your data back or what you're willing to do to prevent the hack from continuing. Um, Obviously, once an incident occurs, you want to make sure your security policies are updated. You want to make sure that lessons learned. We do what's called here at ITG, we do an RCA, a root cause analysis. We go through and figure out, all right, what could we have done differently? What can we do next time? And we actually create a playbook, a run book that shows, hey, if this occurs, do this. And we keep those notes updated. That's part of our service. And that's part of what any cybersecurity company should be doing for you all. There should be a run book that shows what happens if. Again, 60% of hacks come from internal. So do we need more employee training? What are we going to do to prevent this in the future? a security assessment is always a good idea. If you have the means and you're, large enough company, you're not, it's two PCs. If you have more than that, you probably want somebody to come in and just take a quick look and overview. Hey, is my network secured? Could I do more over here? Could I do more over there? Obviously, after a hack is a really good time to do it. Ideally, you'd like to do it before you get hacked. So again, just to recap, best practices: strong firewalls, endpoint protection, data encryption, password managers plus strong passwords. Please don't use your kids' names and birth dates. That's really easy to social engineer to figure out and try it as your password. Training, training, training. I can't stress training enough. Back up your data, secure your Wi-Fi. Everyone has Wi-Fi in their, most people have Wi-Fi in their office. You have guests that come in and want to log onto your guest Wi-Fi. Make sure it's a separate network, separate virtual network from your main network. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know what's on their PC. So just caution. And then network and endpoint monitoring. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely critical. Um, and I think we are at the end. You've listened to me long enough. What questions can I answer for you?
Well, Brian, thank you, first of all. This has been absolutely wonderful and very informative. I've got a few little questions I'm going to run by you, and we'll see if any others come in here. That a couple slides back, when you were giving all of the potential solutions or tools, that's a very overwhelming list potentially, especially for a small business owner, right, who doesn't understand how to implement any of those things. I'm assuming from what you've said that the first thing to do is maybe find someone to come in and do that cybersecurity risk analysis, right?
Absolutely. And I do know it's overwhelming. You're absolutely right. Lots of terms in here. Tried to make them English so everyone can follow because IT is, filled with acronyms. Absolutely. A quick overview. It won't take long. It's not intrusive. An hour and just a discussion. Look at the PCs. Look at the network. 100%. Network security scan would be even ideal.
So I guess maybe last question, Brian, uh, if any of the people who watch this want to get in touch with ITG, what's the best way to do that?
Absolutely. So ITG is based in Chandler, Arizona. You can call me direct. I'm happy to give you my phone number. And yeah, feel free to reach out. I'll give you my phone number and my email, actually. Phone number for those who want it: 602-452-5229. And via email, and I should put this on the slide, it didn't even occur to me. Email is bspitler, SPITLER, at itgarizona.com. And obviously, I'm sure if they reach out to you, you can direct them.
We certainly will. All right. Well, thank you again, Brian. This has been awesome. We'll go ahead and sign off for today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.